Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Keep the Line Moving, the podcast designed to talk about leadership, life, and inspiration. I'm your host, Chris Gargano, and for episode 79, we're talking about adaptability and commitment, two characteristics needed to be successful in any industry. And we will talk in this discussion why they're crucial for success as a communicator in the world of intercollegiate athletics. And today we're joined by two award-winning communicators. Erik Christianson is the executive director of college sports communicators. Early in his career, he was the director of communications at the University of Wisconsin and then spent many years at the NCAA office. We're also joined by John Paquette, who's the senior associate commissioner at the Big East Conference, as well as the president of CSE. He was an assistant athletic director at Seton Hall early in his career. Together, they will explain the primary focus of college sports communicators. We will also talk about CSE Unite, their annual convention, which takes place next month at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. This is a fascinating conversation. What is CSE's role in intercollegiate athletics? We will explain with the expertise of both John and Erik. And the conversation begins now on Keep the Line Moving. All right, Erik and John, wonderful to see you. What a great time of year. You have your big convention coming up, but let's level set and talk about college sports communicators, the organization, what it stands for, and its mission. Erik, let's start with you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Great to be with you today. College Sports Communicators is the premier association for everyone working in strategic communications, digital, creative, media relations, sports information, throughout all levels of college sports in the United States and Canada. We have a big footprint, more than 4,400 members now at every single level of college sports, all three divisions of the NCAA, the NAIA, the two-year college space, and we have a growing contingent of Canadian members as well. And our mission is very simple, to pour into and to grow our members so that they will continue to advance as leaders and provide solutions for their athletics departments, their conference offices, and all of college sports, which of course happens within higher education.
Absolutely, and well said. John, I'll throw it over to you. You are in the Big East, but you're also part of college sports communicators. So you're seeing both sides of the gigantic population that is college athletics and communicating effectively, and as part of the Big East, which is obviously very successful. How do you see it, John? The mission and your contribution with your great background to achieving the goals that Erik just articulated beautifully.
Well, the mission, as you know, as we've started to talk about, is to have our members, our college communicators, have a seat at the table or be recognized as a respected voice and make sure that we are part of the decision-making process when important decisions are being made by an athletic department, whether it's on a school or conference. But also, to Erik's point, when he started listing all our groups, we have a big variance. We have Division I people, Division I staffs with 10 or 12 people on them, or as many as 10 or 12 people on them. And then we have, lower level Division I. We have Division II and all the groups that Erik talked about. So it's not always the same. It's not always the same. We have one-man shops. We have two-man shops. And we've also brought in the digital people in our all-in membership in the last year or two. So there's a lot going on. But we want to try to give a message that is good for everybody, that is good for the high-level Division I, large staff people, and the college division people who sometimes it's only a one-man shop.
John, what a great point. And that's where I want to go with this. Erik, I'll throw it to you. So even now, we're in the business of communicating, for goodness sakes. It's in the title of the organization. However, to receive that message as a singular entity, right? You're at a smaller school. You have yourself and maybe some students helping you as a staff, whereas a big Division I program could have 23 people. How do you deliver a message that is uniquely specific for each individual, yet catering to the needs and the reality that they both of those entities and universities face?
Yeah, that is part of our everyday work, Chris, and we're really excited to approach it in that way. And what we do, of course, is we lean on the subject matter experts within our membership to assist in that way. And so, John is absolutely right. Some of the dynamics are going to be different for a larger Division I institution than they might be for a smaller institution that may only have one person that's running that office, and they're using student workers or graduate assistantships. And so we tailor our programming both at our national convention, which is coming up soon, and throughout the year with our ongoing programming that's specific for those specific levels. We also have a cabinet for each level of college sports that assists us in that way. So we're really dialed in on those particular nuances that might factor in for someone at a smaller institution versus someone at a larger institution as well. We also believe, though, that there are dynamics that are present for all of them. And a really big one of those for us is, how do we continue to get that seat at the table that John mentioned? How do you continue to grow as a leader? How do you become that person of influence on your campus so that when there are big issues going on, big decisions being made, that communicator is at the table offering that subject matter expertise to help guide their department and their institution?
And I think our convention format reflects that. So, we have speakers who we think can deliver messages that are good for everybody. And then on Monday at our convention, we call it Divisional Day, where it's a little bit more specific to your group, to your constituency. So I think our convention format reflects what Erik's talking about.
So the message is very important, and the person delivering the message has to have a sphere of influence. So how do you advise folks to make sure that their sphere of influence is positive and it's robust, and they can be have the seat at the table when something is going down? What is that process? I know you have subject matter experts, but in a global sense, in a general sense, how would you answer that?
Yeah, Chris, what I would say is I'm going to roll back a little bit and talk about the reason that our organization rebranded from our previous name, the College Sports Information Directors of America, which suited us well for a long, long time, when that term sports information really was all encompassing in terms of the work that was being done. We know now over the last several years how dramatic the change has been for the communications industry. In fact, we were talking with some other leaders within college sports who said, over the last 10-year period, there may not be another part of the college sports enterprise that has changed as much as communications, going from fairly consistent and in some ways one-dimensional for a long, long time to now with that strategic, with that creative, with that digital space. And so that really drove the rebrand, which of course we know, rebrands are more than just a new name and a new logo. Names and logos are just names and logos. Really, our rebrand is designed to deliver on the brand promise that we're making to our members. That informs all that we do, Chris.
So, John, when you look at what Erik just said in a practical sense, what is it that you do on a daily basis to ensure this takes place? How has your job changed with the rebrand, right? The rebrand of the organization, the way that digital media is now involved in everything, the way that information is accessed. So how on a day-to-day basis has your role changed and your perspective to align with the new way of thinking per se?
Well, we just have to, to Erik's mention of, for example, the digital people. I mean, there's so many other ways to communicate now. I started in a day when you would type out your press releases and take your white out when you made a mistake. But still, there are, I think, some general messages that we can offer. And, I'm fortunate at the Big East where I do have a seat at the table. So, you talk about, being, we've had panels in the past conventions about athletic directors who talk about this topic. So they talk about the communications people on how they have a seat at the table. And, one of the points is always, well, don't get behind your laptop too much. Get your face out there and in person be part of the solution. So, I think we have some general messages on how those of us can help maintain or help get a seat at the table for some people. And yet, looking at some practical some practical reasons or methods to help yourself do that.
So, Erik, there's so many stakeholders involved in what you both do, right? You have the college athlete, you have the coaches, you have administrators, you have trainers, you have folks in content. There are folks that are in traditional SID roles, which are no longer traditional. So, wrong word, but you know what I'm saying, the sports information directors and their responsibilities. How do you make sure that all the stakeholders are being heard? And how is it that, although you want to get the great information and being behind the typewriter and that visualization, right, with the whiteout, and things are so quick now, how do we make sure in a general sense that everyone is being heard?
Yeah, Chris, thanks for that. I think that's one of the real strengths of our profession. And I think it's one of the real strengths of our organization as well, is that communications more and more and more is becoming that kind of operating nexus for how you interface, how you engage in a multi-stakeholder environment, right? Our members are doing that every day. They're working with student athletes, they're working with coaches, they're working with their colleagues. They're also working with media, they're working with other influencers, and they're thinking about every single time, how am I communicating with them? What are the messages that we want to be providing? How are we supporting this enterprise here at our particular campus and more broadly in college sports? And what is the result that we want from that? The result might be that you have a better working relationship with someone in the news media. Another result might be working with someone in your development office that leads to somebody being more supportive of your institution, working with your coaches and administrators to understand how you are providing leadership and influence in that way. And so in many ways, it's something that I think really comes natural to a lot of our members. And as we look to grow our organization, as John and I have mentioned, where we have many more new members coming in, we're really doubling down on how we work with our younger members, from our very popular 30 under 30 program, our college sports communicators U efforts, the way that we are engaging and reaching out to current students as well. We realize that next generation is really important. So all of those things come together in that way. And I think it's really a great strength of our organization and our profession.
That's so important to talk about the next generation. So, John, you see it in the Big East, right? The next generation of folks in the business, right? From coaches, right, to sports information, to content, and all the various stakeholders that we've alluded to. What do they need to know? Somebody's about to start a new job at one of these universities and they become a member of College Sports Communicators. What do they need to know to be successful? What would you say, John?
I think we have to be versatile, and we have to be flexible, yet informative. We have to show patience sometimes, and just if we could generalize a little bit, the personalities of a coach coaching his team, and maybe an athletic director, and maybe a media, that can be a lot of different personalities. So I think flexibility and patience sometimes is just a couple of keys to being an effective communicator.
That's tremendous. I love where we're going with this. Erik, I'm going to go to you. There are a lot of different personalities in every industry, but college sports, right, with the high visibility and the evolution of where we are, how do you educate folks to understand that? I love what John said about patience and flexibility. You would think that that would not come up in a conversation of such high intensity and high visibility of college athletics. But how do you communicate those values and make sure that folks that are wanting to succeed, either coming up or have been in the industry for 30 years, adhere to the concepts that we've talked about here today?
Yeah, it's something that we lean into every day, Chris. It's a really important topic there. Again, it really drove our rebrand to really show college sports and higher education that it's really a new day for us. And our members are subject matter experts. They are leaders on their campuses, and they every day, in all the ways that we've talked about already, are helping to provide those solutions there as well. So we're constantly thinking about that then in terms of our programming, how we do that at our national convention, how we do that on nearly a year-round basis there. And I would say as well, one piece we haven't talked about yet, but I think is really important, is the advocacy piece as well for the profession and for the organization. And that's something where I spent a lot of time as executive director, and John and our executive board as well, to interface with others within our industry who are in intercollegiate athletics, related to intercollegiate athletics and higher education, so that they know as well from an external stakeholder, an external partner perspective, what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing it, and then ultimately it's intended to really support student athletes and college sports at a time, as you mentioned earlier, which is undergoing dramatic change. There's no question about that. John and I have seen that for a long time from various roles that we've been in. When I was at the NCAA national office prior to this role. And so we've seen all of that. Change is something that never changes, right? We will always have change. What I really like about what's happening with our organization and with our members is they also see that change and recognize that all of the tools that are available now and that will come, at the end of the day, they're just tools. They allow us then to execute on our mission, and that is to support college sports, to lift up student athletes, and support this important enterprise.
John, what advantages do you have as being so integral a part of the Big East, but also part of college sports communicators? You're seeing it from both lenses. What advantages does that give you in helping all of the members?
I think I work in a conference office, and we have 11 members. So I work directly with the communication staff of 11 schools. So I think it lets me see a little bit of the differences in, whether it's staffing or whether it's digital or kind of traditional communications positions. And you get to see different relationships that schools have maybe with their local media, with their athletic director. So I think conference people, we kind of are ingrained to think big picture. And you get to observe a lot of different methods, and so I think that can help me think about and help send the message on what can be effective, or what can be effective in your situation, but maybe not your situation. So you get to see different ways, different paths to success. And sometimes you see different issues that people are dealing with.
So, Erik, to that point, what John just said, you spent many years in the NCAA office, as you said to us earlier in the conversation. How much of that experience helps you, obviously, in your role today? But give us an anecdote or a lineage of your understanding and how we all connect the dots, right, when we move on from a situation to help us in our current situation.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I don't like to talk about myself too much, but I will talk about the approach that we took at the national office. I came there from a very large campus where you didn't get anything done unless you worked together. And so very quickly realized that we needed to work with our members more than we had already been doing. And a key part of that was reaching out to this organization and start to realize that it's not just a top-down approach to communication. That isn't the only solution there. It has to be both a top-down and then a grassroots level effort to come together to really emphasize those main things. I was really fortunate to be able to have that type of a role where I was working with communicators and campuses at all levels of college sports throughout the country, recognizing, as John correctly said, that some of the approaches and solutions are going to be different in different areas than others. But I'm a really, really big believer in the fact that the mission is the same, right? I still believe, and I love the campaign that I had the great privilege of working on when I was at the national office about, there are 500,000 college student athletes in the country. Most are going to go pro in something other than sports. That still is true today, even with the flexibilities that are now available to student athletes with transfers and with NIL, and all of those elements are really important today, and they're going to continue to be important, and they're likely going to continue to evolve, as we know. Our members then have that great privilege of being a part of that and being able to come alongside. So the structure then of the NCAA really is very similar to the structure of college sports communicators, right? We have We have all different groups that are represented. We have leadership groups within them that we work together, and we have that great privilege and responsibility at the staff level and at the executive board level to be able to work with our members. And one of the things that I always appreciated when I was at the NCA about this organization is how committed our members are. You don't get anything done in a membership organization without your members being invested and engaged. And I can assure you that that is the case with college sports communicators. And we've seen it particularly with the rapid amount of growth that we've had. In 2019, the last full year before COVID, we had about 3,200 members, Chris. We're over 4,400 members now. And the majority of those new members are in that space that John talked about: creative, digital, multifaceted types of communicators. That's exactly who we were trying to attract and that we will continue to work with as we go forward.
So this is a follow-up to that, and either one of you can take this, please. You used a great word there, Erik: committed members. What does that mean? I will take a guess at a hypothesis of what it may mean. They're there for each other. They're there as resources, right? If you have a Division III situation and someone wants to know about a D1, like, how did you handle this? You know, it's more in the realm of a bigger market situation. That's a hypothetical. Is that what you meant by committed? In other words, wanting to learn, wanting to help everyone grow.
You know, Erik's term about top-down management, that's not how it works with communicators, at least in the conference and in, I think on campuses. When I was on campus, it was a while ago, but, you're working with people. And I think sometimes people, and Erik worked at the national office, for a long time. And I think some people think that, it's top-down management and all we do is hammer down discipline or make discipline announcements and those kinds of things. But really, we have to work together. And this is more prevalent on the campus. You're working with so many constituencies and you have to work together. They help you. We are, generally speaking, support staff, but we are important staff. So, I think it's, if you don't work together, you can't get it done.
And I'd like to build on that and say, specifically then what that looks like for CSC. We have almost 20 different committees, that are working with our members across North America now. And that's one element of commitment. People are raising their hands, they're voting with their feet, they're signing up to be part of those committees, and they're contributing to the success not only of the organization, but of the profession. Attending the convention in person. And if you're not able to come in person, take advantage of all the online offerings that we're putting forward on a regular basis as well. Nominating and voting for the Academic All-America program, which we're very proud to own and operate. That's another level of commitment there as well. Stepping up to organize a panel at the convention or help us organize the webinar. It makes my job and my team's job, and I think the board's job, that much easier when we have so many members that say, I want to serve. How can I help? Where can I offer my expertise there? We see that on a regular basis, and we're better for it.
And this is kind of a pitch to come to the convention too. You make friends. You have casual talk. You meet people outside of the panels and outside of the speakers. And, you develop friendships and, and then you get to I have convention friends, people that I only see at the convention, and they're my friends. And so that's when you get to say, hey, I've got this situation with me and my place. What do you guys do about it? And that's also where you make friendships. So in 3 months, you're running into a situation, you reach out to your friends or people you've developed relationships with. And, that's part of the business too.
That's a wonderful point. And that's a wonderful way to get together at the annual convention in Las Vegas in early June. Let's talk about the words you've both used: committed, working with people, flexibility, informative, patience, advocacy. What does it take to be an ideal leader at a university for one of these departments? What are the traits that one needs to be successful in this industry?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I'll start and certainly look to John as well. We've all been at this for a long time. I think there are some traits that really transcend specific job titles. What I mean by that is, are you a person who is, are you creative, right? Not just creative in terms of, the types of work you're doing, but just, are you a creative person in general, thinking about all kinds of different ways to do your work? Are you a critical thinker, right? Not just doing the work, but stepping back and saying, what is the bigger objective here? What are we trying to do? And then, are you going to every day be that colleague that you would want to work with as well, right? Somebody who's collaborative, right? Who's committed, who is open to change, who's open to doing things differently, somebody who knows how to manage at all levels of an organization. I think one that's really important for our members as well, particularly because they often are direct staff working with their top administrators on their campus and their coaches, some of whom are very high profile, as we know. So being able to manage up in that way is really, really important. And being able to, as communicators, then not just execute on the communications, but being able to communicate the priorities of why you're doing something and how it's going to benefit those leaders on that campus. So that constant evangelizing, if you will, of the work that you're doing. John?
You got to be team players, and everybody has to know you're a team player. It's great to create graphics and, do all those things that we have to do, behind our laptops, but be visible, be supportive. And also, I don't think it's a bad idea. And what I think this is part of being a team player is let other groups know about success. So that, we're all involved in conferences and groups where certain sports get are higher profile than others. But let's try to get everybody together and appreciate the efforts of all.
That's a great point. And before we get to all-star moments, which will be next, I want to ask this one follow-up to what you just said, John. I love that, because there's high revenue sports, there's sports in between, and then there's those that are winning national titles. Okay, let's look at this. How do you do that, Erik? How do you make folks that have all different responsibilities? They're still human beings. They're still people that need to relate their why, share success, and all the great things you both articulated. How do we keep it, for lack of the pun here, on a level playing field by way of prioritizing the initiatives of all sports?
Yeah, that's again part of every day of what we're doing. And what I love about our membership and our profession is that they are the ones helping to bring those solutions to the fore. And if they're not, we want to help them to be able to do that. So it's different than just, being a technician, if you will, and just being, okay, I got to get this done, right? It's being intentional, right? Being strategic, thinking about what are the ways that we can do to ultimately achieve those outcomes that you're seeking. You want to promote your student athletes, you want to promote your teams, you want to promote your department, you want to promote your campus, and on it goes to support, the entire enterprise at a time that we know that there are people asking questions about the value of college sports. The value of college sports is as important as ever. There's hardly another leadership development program in this country that trains people to be successful for life other than athletics. Why do so many parents want their children to be involved in athletics or other extracurricular activities? Because they learn those kinds of things that John just articulated there. They learn how to be team players. They learn how to work with other people. They learn how to work through differences. They learn how to come up with solutions for a greater good in that way. I am firmly convinced that when you think about being a person of influence, it doesn't matter about your title. It doesn't matter the size of your staff. It matters how you approach your work every day.
Nicely said. Wonderfully said. Okay, gentlemen, it's all-star moments. These are first thought, best thought, quick answers. So okay. We'll go in an order here so we don't lose ourselves. Who wants to go? John, it'll go you first and then Erik, and we'll continue on that order. Here we go, gentlemen. John, you're first. How do you deal with adversity?
You talk to your superiors. You talk you talk among your senior group, whatever you think that senior group is, and say, here's what we got. Can we deal with this today? Do we have a short-term solution, or do we have long-term solutions? Or maybe we have both, but you're collaborative and you work with other people.
Erik, how do you deal with adversity?
I would say two things. First of all, recognize that it shouldn't be a surprise, right? There will always be adversity, whatever you're doing, wherever you're working, whatever your station in life. So don't be surprised by it, and then try to prepare as much as you can. That preparation then allows you to adjust for the specifics of that circumstance.
Awesome. All right, number 2, John, how do you give yourself fuel? How do you keep going?
Is it Big East tournament week, or is it the rest of the year? I get by the tournament. I get by on M&Ms the whole week. So I care about the profession. That's kind of a simple answer, but I do think one of the important things you can do is anticipate situations, and try to do that, because if you don't think about and you don't try to anticipate, then you can get knocked off your chair, and that's when you don't feel great, when you get knocked off your chair.
Erik, how do you give yourself fuel?
I think you've got to take care of yourself, number one. That's something I really try to prioritize. Taking care of myself, making sure I'm getting enough sleep, eating well, I'm working out regularly, and then also staying connected with the people that are really important to you, right? Your family, your friends, those colleagues, being around positive people. I'm a firm believer that if you're not taking care of yourself, it's hard to work with and assist other people in that way.
Okay. What is the value of collaboration, John?
The value of collaboration is gathering different ideas, thoughts and ideas, to deal with a certain situation. But it's also your opportunity sometimes to be a leader.
Erik, the value of collaboration.
Yeah, Chris, I think there's a pressure, particularly for younger professionals, that they feel like they need to know every single thing that you could ever know about anything in your entire life. And I think one of the keys to success in this field and in life is recognizing that you don't have to know everything. It's okay to say you don't know everything, and then work with other people. Surround yourself with smart people, work together. That's when the best work gets done, in my opinion.
Okay. Hiring people. John, you've hired many people over the course of your career. What do you look for in an ideal candidate?
Someone who's easy to work with every day, because we put in a lot of hours in this job. I want to be comfortable with you every day. I want you to work hard, and I want you to really care about our jobs and our profession.
Erik.
Positive attitude, passion for the work, critical thinking skills, good writing and communication skills as well. And then the term that John used earlier, team player. Are you someone that's going to roll up your sleeves and jump in when there's work that needs to be done? You're not going to worry about anybody's title or who's getting credit, that you have got the bigger picture, the greater good in mind every day.
Very strong. All right, I got one more, and that's it. This is a short one. Describe yourself as a leader in one sentence, John.
I try to lead by example for my staff.
Erik?
Yeah, I seek to lead by serving, providing a lot of energy and focus, and being as collaborative as possible.
All right. Gentlemen, fantastic. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thanks, Chris.
And we thank John and Erik very much for being on the show. I have several takeaways from this conversation, and they're all related to advice for the future generation of college communicators. Number one, more than a GPA or a skill set, it's who you are as a person and as a professional that will ultimately determine your success. John and Erik also said, working to be intentional with people and to collaborate with them, as well as be creative and be flexible, informative, and patient. What a conversation. I hope you find it useful. I hope you also enjoy the conference coming up, CSC Unite 2024 in Las Vegas at Mandalay Bay. Thank you, everybody, for being part of Keep the Line Moving. We'll see you next week. Take care, everybody. Every week, you hear guests on this podcast talk about some of their biggest leadership challenges. As a leader, you want to make an impact on those you lead and reach your organization's goals, while also optimizing your time management. Wherever you are in your leadership journey, we could all use some help. This is what we focus on with our group and individual coaching services. To book a call or get more information, email me directly at chrisg@garganoleadership.com or visit our website at garganoleadership.com. For our podcast and video producer, Jack Radutsky, and our marketing coordinator, Savin Narwal, have a great week, everybody.